Taking It Down on Video. We're part of the Taking It Down podcast, and you can certainly hear that if you wish. Each Tuesday morning, we cover TV and streaming TV. It's on the AlabamaTake.com as well, or any podcast app. And while I'm at it, be sure to subscribe to the Alabama Takes newsletter for all the goings-ons and some extra ramblings, which you'll find under the subscribe button on the AlabamaTake.com. So you're watching Taking It Down on Video. Today, we're sponsored by coffee. If you need something to put your coffee in, simply head to the AlabamaTake.com. Click on Shop. Find yourself something to wow your friends. Buy your mama something real nice over there. Razz and I are here. We're joined by special guest Donovan, who's dropping in.
I'm not supposed to be here.
He's not supposed to be here. Special Agent Donovan Reinwald. Very glad. We're wrapping up some ideas on Twin Peaks, specifically the back half of the pilot, the last 45 minutes, maybe 40 minutes of the pilot is where we're at, because we want to get to we actually stopped where Cooper had come to town. The death of Laura Palmer has reverberated throughout the town, and Agent Adele Cooper is driving in, opening, not the opening scene, but the first image of him driving, and the tape recorder to the mysterious Diane.
What an interesting way to introduce a character. He's driving in his car, and I think it's brilliant, the use of Diane as this method to introduce you to the eccentricities of this person, their detail orientation, their sophistication. I think it's a brilliant scene, and you know, not many stand up to it as far as, you know, character introduction goes. I mean, it really stuck out with me the first time I saw it, and I was interested to learn more about this fellow.
Mm-hmm.
Raz stole what I was going to say, because it is like the getting the what is his monologue, right, where you get like all his little inner but it's so clever and so and odd too, right? Like whereas the oddness,
it's
also
so
makes it stand out.
Charmingly quirky.
Yes,
you're so charmed
the
by
details.
him immediately. Kudos to Kyle MacLachlan too for playing that role perfectly. He's basically playing David Lynch. You know, Lynch wrote all of the Cooper stuff, supposedly, right?
Yeah.
But Cooper cuts right to the chase when he meets Sheriff Harry S. Truman. You know, he shakes his hand and tells him, he's got this line where he says, basically something like that, I'm going to cut right to the chase. You know, usually sheriffs don't like when I come into town. And Sheriff Truman's like, no, we're happy to have you. And right there, they're buddies. It's almost like right there. Oh, they're going to, you know, Cooper, you see it in Cooper's reaction that we're going to be friends, aren't we?
It's great because he sets the tone that, hey, I'm just letting you know up front, I'm in charge of this thing. But at the same time, he's completely open-minded and respectful. Even though he's far ahead of everyone else in the game, he's so respectful of their opinions and their take on the case and on the goings-on, and he's so genuinely interested that I think that leads to just the appeal of that character. I mean, he's a genuinely like good person, it seems, just right out of the gate. And even though he sets the tone there, letting him know, hey, this is my case, and you're going to be working with me on this thing.
Firm but polite. Very true. I might be jumping around here, but let me just say this one opinion. Leo Johnson's nice.
Well, he's a hard-working man. All-American.
The man. Yeah, well, I just, that kind of scares me a little. Still to this day, I rewatched the pilot last week, and Bobby's driving. He's got Shelley, you know, he's cheating on Laura because he doesn't know Laura's dead yet. So I am a little out of chronological order. He's got her snuggled up in the car, and they drive, but they see his big rig there at home. It's creepy.
Well, and it's, you know, but
he's about to get caught.
Bobby and Shelley are, you know, in the process of betraying Leo, even though he's a terrible guy, and they think that they're pulling one over on him. But, you know, you can tell that he is very knowledgeable and aware that something is up. he doesn't know exactly what it is, but he knows something's going on.
Yeah, later in the episode, he questions her about the cigarettes. What kind of cigarettes do you smoke? She says, any kind. And he says, I want you smoking one kind. So there we get, not polite, but firm. They have a town hall where Cooper tells basically everyone, you get the reveal that why he's in town or why he's so nearby. He was actually investigating a murder of Teresa Banks about a year earlier. And somewhere in this timeline of what you see on screen, you get Ronette Pulaski. And that's another image that'll just stick with you is her walking across those train tracks in basically a slip that's been torn, and her ties that have been holding her overnight. She was connected to Laura. It's a scary image.
It is. It's also the first real indication of the brutality and the trauma associated with what happened to them. I mean, you see Laura, she's wrapped in plastic, but you really, other than she's dead and she's wrapped in plastic, you don't really get a visual of the brutality and of the scene. And then once you see Ronette Pulaski, that's where you start to realize how terrifying and evil the scenario was that happened to them. And then with the Teresa Banks bringing Cooper in, I mean, also dead girl wrapped in plastic. And so that's the link and bringing Cooper into that.
David Lynch has got to be just a fascinating person to talk to, right? Because
Sure.
He does have there's Cooper's kind of like shucks Boy Scoutness, right? That a lot of people remember, but underneath, when you really, and this is casting forward a little bit, right? But I think even in the pilot, right? There's, like you said, when you look at what is also undergirding all that gee whiz stuff, it's scary. It's violent, and it's extreme violence, and it's horrific.
Yeah, it really is. Those moments snap into focus a little bit when he investigates Laura's body, and he immediately knows to excuse the morgue worker and to look under the fingernail. It's a bit of evidence he knows to look for. Does the same with Ronette Pulaski. He goes to question her and is allowed to, despite her being in pretty rough shape.
I remember it just seemed like he goes so deep under the bed of that nail that it's you kind of wince, even though she's dead and in the morgue. You still wince at that scene.
Razz and I discussed the flickering fluorescent light, how Lynch decided, no, we're keeping it. It was a mistake on set. Laura, they get the videotape, and they start bringing in people associated with Laura who could have had a hand in some of this. They bring in Bobby, and Bobby, he's not too happy about being brought into the jail. He and his buddy, is his name Mike? Buddy Mike doesn't play a huge role going throughout, but he's there. It's Donna's boyfriend, perhaps, off and on. Yeah, Bobby's not happy about being questioned about Laura's death, but Laura claims to James, whom we haven't talked about yet, James. Laura claims to James that Bobby killed someone, and she screamed she loved him. Do you guys remember that playing a factor in the first season at all?
I do not remember that at all.
Yeah.
I remember, with regards to Bobby, I always just remember the kind of the goofy kind of teenage angst and all the over the top scenes that he plays, like the barking in the jail cell, and I cracked up whenever I rewatched, because I'd forgotten whenever they go to they're looking for Donna, and Mike goes up to the door, and Bobby's drinking, and he's standing on the hood of the car, and he's like, it's like he's pretending like he's skateboarding, and he's looking up at the moon, and Donna's dad's like, you're not drinking and driving, are you, Mike? And he's like, well, sir, we're all just kind of tore up over this, and Bobby's driving. So he's like, I'm not driving, Bobby's driving, the one that's standing on the hood of the car.
Right. Pretty realistic despite its comedy. So Bobby is, and that hairstyle, by the way, if you're wondering, that people in the 90s actually wore their hair like that. So, y'all ever find it odd that the high school kids could drink at the Roadhouse? Does that seem a little illegal?
I love it. Like the Roadhouse is like where the rules don't apply.
It didn't stop us.
It's like, yeah, whatever.
Very also realistic. So it ends with James telling Donna that Laura had a secret life, maybe even on top of her secret life. You know, there's the Flesh World magazine that Cooper and Sheriff Truman find. And this is where you really start to see where the show's going to go. They've got the half of the heart. You did not know who had the other half of the heart that Laura was wearing. You find out it was James. Am I correct about that? And they bury it. He and Donna decide that they are in love. Maybe. They're starting to decide. And they kiss out in the middle of the woods. Very, very creepy middle of the woods, tone happening here. He's on his motorcycle. They're kind of out there. It reminds me of a lot of places, Razz, that you and I would go and drink and get away from the world. And those places were pretty creepy, too.
Well, you mentioned the VHS tape earlier, and right, the picnic scene, and that's one where James is directly linked. The kind of the first piece of evidence that James was involved, and it also highlights the genius of Cooper, where he zooms in and sees the reflection of the motorcycle in her eye, and that became nobody else saw it, but Cooper saw it, and you start to understand, how detail oriented he is and how good of an investigator.
I saw someone say online that Cooper's the first Asperger's hero on television, perhaps.
Possibly.
He's not obviously openly.
He is.
But he could be.
He is more like he's kind of the 1950s dad type. I mean, definitely like 1950s nostalgia detective, but super sophisticated and super, kind of up to date and advanced, beyond others in the room. So, the visual is deceiving, certainly for Cooper.
I want to talk about the ending as we wind it down, which is a back and forth. James and Donna have buried the piece of the heart because they are scared it's evidence that might be linked to them and get them in a lot of trouble. They bury it, and the back and forth is between a gloved hand going to that mound of dirt to get the necklace, the chain, and Laura's mom, who is finally resting because she's been medicated, and she wakes up, and it is frightening, her reaction. She plays her role so well because it scares you without showing you hardly anything at all except for her being scared. Now, here's something I did not know until this year. It took me this long. It's all you'll read about this everywhere you look. That Bob was kind of a happy accident as well, where the man playing Bob, Razz, give us his name
Silva?
again. Yes, he's since passed, but he was just a worker on set, and he was in a shot, and Lynch said, "Perfect, keep it," and he went with it, ran with that idea that this guy who worked on set was going to be one of the characters now. Okay, I always read that, and I never knew what scene it was.
Yes,
and y'all
it's that
do,
one.
don't you? And it will scare the shit out of you. And it being the first time I knew to look. I actually didn't know to look. I'd watched the whole pilot again, and I read that, and I went and watched that final scene, and it scared me to death. Because here's what you're going to be looking for. When Laura's mom wakes up, she's frightened, she senses something or just a newfound terror about Laura's death. In the mirror, you can see what will become Bob. I thought it was another scene. I thought it was in an episode or two later where he's accidentally in something, or it's something a deleted scene you never saw, and Lynch decided to say, no, let's use it. Let's use him, not it, the scene. So, wow. Scary.
I just love how good Lynch is at. He knows exactly what he wants, right? From what I've heard with actors that work with him, right? Like he really does a good job of being like, hey, here's exactly what I want. But he is so good at just like incorporating those accidents and just being like, yeah, the world is weird. Let's go with it.
I bet that's a credit to transcendental meditation and living in the present. You know, if something happens, he kind of accepts it as, let's use this.
I have a story because my coworker, one of her friends, ended up becoming a film professor in Montana and got David Lynch to come speak to his class.
Fascinating.
He wouldn't talk about any of his movies or anything. He just wanted to talk about TM the whole time.
I would have been there front row, and because I'm interested in that too. Excellent. What we're going to do. Oh, of note, by the way, just in case anybody really wants more trivia, Audrey and Cooper aren't in any scenes together in the pilot. Just a little fun fact. You probably could have guessed that one, though. Let's do this next week. We're going to talk about probably episodes 2 and 3. We'll see how far we can get with that, because we're going to start combining a few, especially as we get into season 2 for sure. We'll start combining huge chunks of the episodes. Does the pilot scare you just enough?
It's one of the best pilot TV shows ever.
Uh-huh.
I think it's a little shaggy there with the introduction of Ed. You know, he's trying to introduce every single person you're going to see throughout the season, so it's just a little odd to see a few there. But no, you're right. It's fantastic.
It is the most immediately arresting pilot that you'll probably ever see. Mm-hmm. And just, like, I do agree with Blaine. Like, a little shaggy, right, because he's doing a lot, but actually it's kind of all killer.
But, you know,
not a lot of filler.
It aired as a Sunday movie of the week, so with that being said, it's pretty good. Not pretty good, it's better than pretty good. See y'all next week, episode 2 for sure.
Later.
Adios.